Hey everybody, it's Miss Mac. It's Saturday morning, 11:33 a.m. and I'm up early because I want to make this video for you early. So those of you who have your notifications set, you'll know because you'll get a notification when I post this video. Anyway, we're going to be looking at chapter 37. Of course, we are reading Chains. So get your books ready, guys. Some of you guys are not annotating. You're just chilling out with the video, but you really need to annotate because those quiz grades are looking crazy. You will have a quiz on chapter 37 on Monday. So, guys, come on, get ready, be prepared. Let me get organized, get the video kind of organized so it's not like all up on me. Obviously, I have my cup of knowledge. That's good. I added a little bit of music to the background. Hey. Okay, enough of that. Anyway, join me on page 232. Guys, I want you to make sure that you're annotating and that you do your CSCRT and themes specifically because you're going to see that on your quiz on Monday. So let's get ready. Let me kill the music. And again, join me on page 232. We're reading chapter 37. Let's get it. Saturday, December 14th through Monday, December 23rd, 1776. The distress of the prisoners cannot be communicated in words. 20 or 30 die every day. They lie in heaps unburied. What numbers of my countrymen have died by cold and hunger, perished for want of the common necessaries of life. I have seen it. Thus, sir, the boasted British clemency. Letter written from New York describing prisoners captured at Fort Washington. So apparently, the conditions in the prison are horrible. And people are dying. Men are dying because they don't have food. And they don't have proper shelter or clothing to keep them warm. That's really sad. So let's think about why Has Anderson uses that particular primary document at the beginning of chapter 37. Guys, keep that in mind as we read. I'm just going to organize my phone because it seems like it's not really like, okay, that's a better angle. A little sip from the cup of knowledge always, and let's get started. Lady Seymour regained her strength by the day. I was no longer allowed to spend warm hours in her bedchamber. She took her breakfast and dinner alone, but joined the rest of the company for supper each night. Madame was saddened by her husband's aunt's return to health. The next week passed in a kitchen storm of flour and sugar, for Christmas was fast approaching. Madame's list required delicacies was endless. Gingerbread, pies of brandied peaches and preserved cherries and mincemeat, macaroons, blancmange, Jordan almonds, sugar candy, as many kinds of cake as there were fingers on both hands. I was the dog's body in charge of keeping the oven stoked with wood and the ashes cleared out, fetching forgotten ingredients from the market and beating eggs 10 at a time till my arm was near fall off. 2 of the soldier wives got into a terrible squabble the day the woodpile froze. So guys, highlight, underline, or circle squabble and give me a gist for what you think that word means. You could see that word come up on a quiz. I'm on the top of page 233 if you're just joining us. 2 of the soldier wives got into a terrible squabble the day the woodpile froze. Hannah told Mary it was her turn to fetch home the buckets from the tea water pump, and Mary said no, 'twas Hannah's turn. Back and forth they went, the words getting hotter as their tempers grew shorter. I went yesterday, Mary said loudly as she poured boiling water into a basin. You know that for a fact, because you told me my nose was the color of a cherry when I came in. Hannah shook her head as she scrubbed the floor. No, 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 that was 2 days ago. Yesterday, I slipped on the ice and fell on my backside. Near broke my tailbone, I did. Could barely come up the steps this morning. You're a lying codface, you are, Mary said. Hannah threw the brush in the bucket and water splashed on the floor. Who are you calling a liar? Sarah, the boss lady, came through the door just as Mary rounded the table, her hands balled up in fist. Sarah was getting close to her time and had a bit of a temper herself. So Sarah getting close to her time, highlight, underline, or circle that. That means that Sarah, the person who's the boss of the kitchen, is pregnant and she's about to have a baby. So Hannah and Mary are arguing over what? Give me a gist about what they're arguing about. You'll probably see that on a quiz. So in comes Sarah, the boss lady, came through the door just as Mary rounded the table, her hands balled up in fists. Sarah was getting close to her time and had a bit of a temper herself. She slammed the door so hard the whole house shook. Shut your gobs, she said. I'll report the pair of you to the colonel if you don't straighten up. There'll be no more brawling or caterwauling in this kitchen. But, they both said. Sarah leveled such a glare at the pair of them, I thought their hair would catch fire. And suddenly, I saw a way clear to my own purposes. So what does that mean? Let's stop right there. Think about, what does Isabel mean when she says, I suddenly saw a way clear for my own purposes? Give me a little prediction right there. What do you think Isabel is talking about? What does she mean when she says, I saw a way clear for my own purposes? Begging pardon, Miss Sarah, ma'am, I said weakly. What do you want? She said, her eyes still on the other women. I can fetch the tea water, I volunteered. Mary shook her head back and forth. No, she won't. She'll tarry at the shops, get out of her own chores, make one of the men do it, I say. I'm the first one awake to build up fires, I explained. The shops are still closed then. I'll dash up to the pump and be back before the sun comes up. Sarah gave me a suspicious look. Why would you take on extra work, special with it being so cold and dark in the morning? Ooh, something's in my eye, guys. Give me a minute. Ugh. Stuff always happens to you when you're trying to read. Anyway. So Isabel is arguing to let her go to the tea water pump. Clearly she's up to something. We're not really sure what that is yet, but we will be. So she says to the ladies, no, the shops are still closed then. I'll dash up to the pump and be back before the sun comes up. Sarah gave me a suspicious look. Why would you take on extra work, special with it being so cold and dark in the morning? Oh man, something's in my eye, guys. Hold on, give me a minute. I was raised in the country, miss. Too much time inside makes me feel poorly. I like walking in the fresh air, even if it's cold. 'Twas mostly a lie, but the tea water pump was right close to the prison. Fetching water would give me a chance to check on Curzon every day. Hannah picked up her scrub brush and knelt on the floor again. Let her go, I say. Saves us the trouble of freezing our tails off. She dipped the brush in the bucket. Don't know what possessed me to follow my Jimmy to this God-forsaken colony. So, we're really clear about why Isabel wants to go get the water every morning, so she can do what? Yes, so she can check on Curzon. And we know that Curzon is in Bridewell Prison. So give me a highlight, underline, or circle somewhere in there. That specific line, fetching water, would give me a chance to check on Curzon, and then give me a gist. That's why Isabel wants to go. Continuing, bottom of page 234. The next morning found me headed up island long before the sun rose. When I knocked on the guardhouse door of the prison, it was opened by a soldier I'd never seen before, a short man with black hair, sky blue eyes, and a scowl. You can't come in, he said after I explained my errand. Regulations have been changed. Tell her about the windows, called another soldier, warming himself by the fire. The regulations permit civilians to deliver food and sundry provisions. So highlight, underline, or circle sundry provisions. That means the basics. Toothpaste, toothbrush, soap, maybe something to wash your face. Those are sundry provisions or things you need for basic hygiene. Top of page 235. But not firewood, added the man at the hearth, yawning. But not firewood, repeated the first man. There will be regular patrols round the perimeter of the building to ensure that civilians do not tarry over long in conversation with the prisoners. And we'll be checking on the grub you give them, said his companion. Guards will inspect all civilian donations, the first man said formally. If you deliver contraband items, you will be imprisoned yourself. I shivered once. Are scones and jam contraband? Not yet. Back outside, I walked around the front of the building, trying to figure where Curzon's cell lay. Some prisoners were already awake, their hands and arms wrapped in rags sticking through the bars of the window. Curzon's cell lay to the back of the building. I rounded the corner and stopped. There was where the burial pits were dug. The pits were just a little smaller than the cells, dug down the height of a grown man. One of them had already been filled with bodies and covered again with dark mud. Two lay open and empty, sprinkled with snow like sugar on a cake. I did not know how many bodies would fit in. I shivered again and pulled my cloak tight, then turned my back to the graves and counted the windows. 2, 3, 4, until I came to the window I hoped led to Curzon's cell. The eastern sky was brightened enough for me to see all around, but inside the prison was dark. I stepped up to the building. The bottom of the window was just above the top of my head. I stood on tiptoe and stretched my hands up to the bars. Hello? I called in a hushed voice. Curzon? Anyone? The nasty fellow who had tried to steal my bucket on my first visit, Dibdin, leaned his face against the bars. He had a blanket around his shoulders and Curzon's hat upon his head. Won't let you in no more, eh? They changed the rules. Can you fetch my brother, please, sir? Now remember, Isabel, when she first came to the prison, had to tell the prison guards that Curzon was her brother in order for them to let her in. And so now there's no more going directly into the prison. You have to kind of go around to the back of the prison, find the window that leads to your loved one's cell, and just scream out so they can come to the window. So the guards or the British are really making sure that no one can bring anything into the prisoners except their basic items and food. Okay? So they want no contraband. So if you go back to page 235, that word contraband, please circle, highlight, and underline that. And give me a definition for what you think contraband is. Use context clues to figure out. That's a gist that I'm going to be looking for. Back on page 236, still top of the page. They changed the rules, sir. Can you fetch my brother, please, sir? He's sleeping. I wanted to pull the bars apart, snatch the hat from his head, and thrash him with my fists and shoes, but that was impossible. I forced honey into my voice and a humble tone. All right, so why is Isabel upset? Why is she angry at this man who's in the cell with Curzon? What has he done to piss her off? Give me a gist right there, guys, and let me know what you think she's angry about. Well then, may I please speak to your sergeant? Sarge is dead. He turned his head and spat. I'm in charge now. I'll take the victuals you brought. I started to reach into the bucket to hand the scones through the bars, but I stopped. How do I know my brother's not dead, too? Wake him up, please. Dibdin opened his mouth, but closed it without a word. His hunger was stronger than his temper, it seemed. He turned to someone in the cell. Get the black boy over here. A moment later, Curzon appeared at the window. He was shaking so badly he could barely stand, his eyes half closed, teeth chattering. He had no blanket around him, and there were puke stains on the front of his shirt. His gold earring was missing too. Okay, so let's stop right here. Think about Curzon. Think about Isabel. Now we know in previous chapters, everything that Isabel does is motivated by her need to, her want to, her obligation or responsibility to Ruth. But now it seems that Isabel's motivation has changed. What is she concerned about? What is she really passionate about? And think about Curzon. What state is he in? Remember the gold earring? Remember the crazy hat that he always wore? Where's his hat? Where's his earring? You should have a gist that speaks to what is happening to Curzon's belongings as he's in prison. So his gold earring is missing too. Curzon, Curzon, I hissed. What ails you? What can I do? He did not hear me or could not. He was insensible of his own name and where he was. Dibdin joined Curzon at the window. Terrible, ain't it? How fevers and pox tear through this place. There was hollow laughter in the cell. Give him back his hat, I said, and a blanket. Is he getting his rations? He did not answer me. That was answered in itself. The prison was not a place of shared hardship anymore. It was a hole of desperation. You bloody beast, I swore. How dare you let him starve? The words flew out of my mouth without pause. Who are you to reprimand me, girl? He snarled, putting his face up to the bars. His breath stank of rotting teeth, and snot pooled at the edge of his nostrils. He's a slave. He will not be treated same as free men. He wiped his nose with the back of his hand. But you can remedy that, he said, with ease. I tried to keep my voice steady. How so? So here we come back to this thing about how slaves are treated differently. Now, Curzon, this whole time, is thinking to himself, I am an American. I am a soldier. I am a patriot. And yet, when he is imprisoned with his fellow patriots and American soldiers, how is he treated? You should have something highlighted, circled, or underlined there with a gist that speaks to the realization or the aha moment that Curzon must have had as he's in prison and getting treated like a slave by his fellow American soldiers. So Dibdin is really clear. He's a slave and he will not be treated same as free men. And Isabel is really, really angry and trying to hold her temper, which we know by this line. I tried to keep my voice steady. How so? Curzon was seized by a fit of coughing so violent I feared his ribs would crack. He choked on his spittle and fought for breath, then finally relaxed back into his stupor, leaning against the window. Dibdin glanced back at the other men in the cell before continuing. Our Captain Morse is on patrol, lodged at Golden Hill Tavern, we hear. Go there. Tell him the men have fever and pox. One of our lads, Bridgebane, has a father in Piscataway with money and influence. If the captain can get word to him, Bridgebane's father could arrange for a proper physician to attend us here. Curzon coughed again and moaned. Sweat glistened on his forehead. And the doctor would see my brother, I said. Dibdin hesitated, then gave a nod. Aye. And he gets a blanket and food? Okay, so stop right here. Ooh, what's wrong? My thing went cuckoo. Why is my... Okay, back in balance. Sorry about that. So here, Isabel begins to bargain for Curzon. So Dibdin, one of the prisoners who's in the cell with Curzon, wants Isabel to help him. She wants Isabel to get word back to the captain that the prisoners are not being treated well. They have no blankets, they have no food, they have very, very small portions or rations of food. And he feels that if she gets the information back to the captain, he can use his influence to at least send a doctor to check on the men who are very sick. And so Isabel begins to bargain, saying, well, if I do this, will Curzon be treated as well? Will he get food and a blanket? So let's see what Dibdin says. Dibdin said something to a man I couldn't see. A blanket appeared on Curzon's shoulders. Curzon clutched it around himself. And his hat? My voice was ice. Dibdin removed the hat and placed it on Curzon's head. Lay him down, he instructed, on the rushes, not the bare floor. Someone helped Curzon away from the window. I had no choice. I handed him the jam-covered burnt scones up to the window. Dibdin stuck first one in his mouth, then passed the others to the men, who suddenly crowded the window. If he dies, you'll not see me again, I warned. Understood, he said. So this is really interesting. Isabel is really asserting herself in this moment. And we're really seeing, or Hals Anderson is really showing us what kind of person Isabel is. This is really showing her strength and her resolve to do the right thing by Curzon. She's really shifted because in previous chapters, we first saw how concerned she was about Ruth, everything she did, her loyalty to the Lochtons, her spying for the Patriots, was all motivated by the fact that she had to take care of Ruth and plot and plan for her freedom. And now it seems that her motivations for what she's doing and how she's acting and responding are motivated by Curzon and taking care of Curzon. So think about that as we move through this chapter. What are the changes that we're seeing in Isabel, and why is she changing? I found Captain Morse carrying out rubbish for the tavern keeper. He was a well-fed man wearing the brown coat trimmed with white that signified he was a prisoner of war. There was a big gap between his front teeth, but they looked clean enough. He joined me in the shadows of the alley and listened as I quickly explained my mission. I'll try to get word to Bridgebane's family tonight. It is against all laws of war to treat prisoners so badly. He paced angrily. How often can you stop here? Every morning. Good. Tell Dibdin I'll see what I can do to ease their suffering, though I fear it won't be enough. My brother is among the prisoners, I said. He's ill. Can I see to it that he is given his share of whatever Bridgebane provides? I surely will. Your brother was calm and brave during the final battle. He's a true soldier. A crow of a rooster interrupted him. The sun was fighting through the laden clouds. I picked up my buckets. I have to hurry. He nodded. Thank you for your help. My apologies, but I do not know your name. I am called Sal. Do you carry a last name as well, Sal? I hesitated. According to Madam, my surname was Lochton, but it tasted foul in my mouth. I shook my head. He smiled. Just Sal, then. Goodbye to you, just Sal. So here we see an interesting conversation or an interesting dialogue between Isabel and Captain Morse. And so they're having this conversation. She's giving him the information about the terrible treatment that the men are enduring at the prison, but always mindful of her main mission, which is Curzon. So once again, she says to Captain Morse, listen, if Bridgebane is able to get any provisions to the prison, make sure that my brother is able to partake. And so Morse makes a promise to Isabel. And so let's see what happens. Continuing, middle of page 239, guys. Lucky for me, the overcast morn caused the other servants to sleep past their normal time. By the time Hannah and Mary staggered up from the cellar, I had the porridge bubbling and the tea steeping. I could not eat nor drink a thing, for my belly was tied up in fear. So stop right there. Highlight, underline, circle. Why do you think Isabel is afraid? Guys, that would be a great quiz question. So we have a couple of quiz questions already. Why is she angry at Dibdin? Why did Dibdin take Curzon's hat? Why were Mary and Hannah arguing at the beginning of chapter 37? And what is Isabel's plan once the women start arguing? So we found out a bunch of different stuff. Guys, take note of those. Make sure your annotations reflect what we've talked about. And make sure you're prepared for that quiz on Monday. So I'll read again. So she starts by saying she's headed back home. And it's lucky for her that the overcast morn. So when it's overcast, it stays darker a little bit longer in the morning because the sun is hidden by clouds. And she's lucky because the other servants have slept past their normal time. And by the time Hannah and Mary got up, remember those are the soldier wives, and staggered up from the cellar, she already had the porridge bubbling and the tea ready. I could not drink nor eat a thing, for my belly was tied up with fear. My thoughts chased round and round my brain pan. I could not visit the prison daily. I was sure to be caught and punished, but I had to visit the prison daily. Curzon's life depended on it. So there now we see that Isabel is motivated by what? She's motivated by her concern now for Curzon. But someone would see me and was sure to remember the mark on my face. Word would get back to Madam, and she would tell Colonel Hawkins, and he would set someone to follow me, and Captain Mars would be flogged for passing on messages, and the prisoner in Curzon's cell would all be hung and buried in the pit. So she's thinking about all the things that could possibly happen if she gets caught. So give me an underline, a circle, or a highlight there, ladies and gentlemen, and give me a gist. Why does Has Anderson give us all of these thoughts that are swirling around in Isabel's mind? What is she trying to say? I think that she's trying to say that Isabel had to be really, really careful going back and forth to that prison so as not to get followed and not to get caught. When I thought what they might do to me, I ran to the necessary and had me a good puking. So the necessary is another word for the bathroom. So when she's thinking about all these horrible things that can happen and how much danger she is in, but also how horrible Curzon is and her sense of obligation to him, it makes her throw up. But the next day, I made my way up there again. Food for the prisoners, water for the Locktons, and every once in a while, a message to the gap-toothed man in the brown coat at Gold Hill Tavern. So Isabel is really busy. She has a lot of responsibility. And I think that Has Anderson does a really good job with characterization here. So she doesn't just come right out and say that Isabel is responsible and that Isabel is brave and that Isabel is strong. But we understand these things about her by sort of this conflict she has in her soul. She's really afraid to get caught. There's so much at stake. The men at Bridewell Prison, Captain Morse who's helping her, Curzon's health and safety. All of these things are balled up inside her, and yet she musters the strength, or she's brave enough to continue sneaking to the prison every day. So I think it's important to note that here. Let's continue. A few nights later, there was a terrible hullabaloo between Madam and the master when he announced at supper that he was planning to travel on the next ship to London. He would carry messages to Parliament, conduct his own business, and likely return to New York by the summer. Madam was not pleased. First she argued that he ought not go. Then she argued, yes, he should go, and he should take her with him. When he refused, she threw a goblet in the fireplace and carried on so loudly that the Mr. and Colonel Hawkins finally called for a carriage and left for the tavern. Madam doused herself with strong wine after that and went to bed. So now, Madam is up to her old tricks. Anytime something happens that she doesn't like, she throws a fit. This time she threw a goblet, which we know is like a wine glass. So she's turning up, and Master and Colonel are like, we not putting up with this foolishness. We out. Deuces, Madam. So what does Madam do? She turns up and gets good and drunk. That night, the temperatures fell so far below freezing that the biggest fire could not keep away the chill. I moved my pallet as close to the hearth as I dared and sat with my clothes, my cloak, and my blanket wrapped around me. 'Twas so cold I could not sleep. General Washington and his men were holed up in Morristown. Folks say they were in desperate need of stockings and food. I could scarce credit how hungry men with frozen feet could win a war. They were fools to even try. I waited as the clock first chimed 11 times, then 12. watching the firelight and trying not to ponder. When I could get up and add wood to the fire, my feet wandered themselves to the pantry, and my hands pulled the loose board there. Under the board were some sheets of newsprint I had saved, a lead piece from the statue of King George, my seeds, and the book given me by the stationer. I carried the book to my warm pallet and quietly untied the twine and removed the paper wrapping. So let's stop here. Here is another really clear piece of evidence of the kind of person Isabel is. Now remember, in these times, it was literally illegal for slaves to learn to read and write. And here Isabel is sneaking out in the middle of the night, going to her little hiding place where there's some loose wooden floorboards, and she's hidden these things that are really, really important to her. Her mother's seeds are there. Her book is there. The little piece of statue that she picked up off the ground after the Patriots blew up the statue of King George. All of these little things are there and are her only belongings and the most important things to her. But she's really, really bold, because what could happen to her if she's caught with a book is really unspeakable. And yet, she has this book hidden. So she opened the cover. A fellow named Thomas Paine wrote a little book, and he called it Common Sense. And remember, we talked about Common Sense, and we read an excerpt from Common Sense. Mama always said that common sense was far from common. That's why it was so special when I found it. So this book is a couple of things. It reminds her with its title of something that her mom used to say. And so that in and of itself is endearing, this memory that she has with her mother, but also the boldness that she has to actually keep a book hidden and to sneak occasionally and read it. Amazing. The first sentence of the book did not seem to contain any. In other words, the first sentence of the book didn't make any sense to her. Some writers have so confounded society with government as to leave little or no distinction between them, whereas they are not only different, but have different origins. Society is produced by our wants, and government by our wickedness. So that is the first paragraph in Common Sense that Isabel refers to as not making any sense to her. It took 4 readings to figure out the meaning. Guys, highlight, underline, or circle that line. And my gist, I put sounds familiar. So it took 4 readings to figure out the meaning, which I took to be that life of folks is different than the world what rules over them. Paine sure did dance a long time with the notion before he said it. Really, really interesting. And also it just shows like the depth of understanding that this girl has. Imagine being taken from your home country. You're brought to America where you don't speak the language, you don't understand the culture. And yet this little slave girl not only learns how to read, but also has a really deep and profound understanding of what she's reading. And this is evident by sort of her internalization of Thomas Paine's words in Common Sense. So after reading this line 4 times, she figured out what it meant. And in her mind, it meant that people are really different from those who rule over them. And I think that's a really, really profound statement. And she says of Paine, he sure did dance a long time with a notion before he said it. So basically what she's saying is that Thomas Paine kind of said a whole bunch of stuff to say something really simple. I closed the book and longed for Robinson Crusoe, still stranded in the study where Colonel Hawkins was asleep. So remember, in the library or in the study is where she found Robinson Crusoe one night and started reading that. But she can't go to the library now and steal books because Colonel Hawkins is there. So let's go back. I closed the book and longed for Robinson Crusoe, still stranded in the study where Colonel Hawkins was asleep. I dared not rescue him. I opened the book again and attacked the next sentence. Guys, that's it for chapter 37. Really good read. I think what I want you to really think about as you prepare for your quiz is, how has Isabel changed? What is she thinking about now? Remember, in the previous chapters, she was only concerned about Ruth and gaining her freedom. Then she sinks into a very, very deep depression once Madam takes Ruth away from her and sells her. And then she gets really, really angry and fired up, and is so angry that she doesn't even want to see or talk to Curzon. Then there's yet another shift in her sense of who she is. Like, I am a slave, but I am worth something. And I'm going to read, and I'm going to take care of and check on my friend, even if it means risking my life. Really, really good chapter. Really important for understanding the character that Isabel is. And I think it's really important for you guys to sort of highlight this chapter, because, and I'm going to get close, whenever I get close and take a sip out of my cup of knowledge, that means that something really important is coming up. And that is chapter 37 is a chapter that I would read and reread and read again, because there could be information in there about your CPA, or that you can use on your CPA. So again, let's read, reread, and read again chapter 37. Make sure that your gists are tight. Make sure you understand what motivates Isabel in chapter 37. That's going to be really important for our conversation on Monday and for your quiz on Monday. And make sure that you sort of earmark, put a bookmark at page 37, because chapter 37 is going to be really important for your CPA. More about the CPA later. Going to probably be posting a video tomorrow with some other chapters to highlight and review for your CPA. But for now, guys, I'm going to get on with my Saturday. Hey, hey, hey. Have a good one. See you Monday.